Good evening, or morning, or whatever time that you are on planet Earth. It's all good. Welcome to the first edition of Exodus Now podcast. I am here joined with Pastor Shimar Keith. Officially now Pastor Shimar Keith. Congratulations.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, we'll be hosting this show for the foreseeable future with special guests on and things like that. And we'll go ahead and get to the subjects that we're going to be getting to. So this thing's like, for example, what we like to do is, and how we kind of like to preach from also too, is that we like to see what God has to say about a particular subject or whatever it is.
Yes.
And after that, we just go ahead and preach or teach or whatever on that particular subject, because it seems like a better idea to, see what he has to say about these things, because we worship him. So
Yep.
it kind of seems like a no-brainer. But anyway, so what we landed on for this week was we're going to do a couple of different things on different subjects on different times. So we're going to be having a discussion, or he wants us to have a discussion about masculinity, which is something that Pastor Keith here has done a full TED Talk on.
Yeah, masculinity in crisis. No, statistical masculinity, leadership in crisis.
Yeah. So the video's not on there yet, is it?
No, it's supposed to be coming down. I'm expecting it any day now.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah.
A TED Talk, come on.
Yeah. Like I got news of that, and I was kind of like, oh wow, that's pretty impressive. So that's kind of cool.
Shout out to TEDx Tyler Park in Louisville.
Yeah. Shout out to our homeboy Jabril, J Powers also for the hookup.
Woo, come on.
Yeah, that's a wild dude right there. But okay, so we're going to be talking about masculinity. We're going to be talking about, is it okay to be aggressive? So a lot of times I've noticed this, is that when you talk about masculinity, you automatically get the conversation about, aggression and, what did he call it? Toxic masculinity?
Yeah, that's the famous buzzword, toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And it basically means being a man. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about that, and also we're going to talk about another discussion that comes up when we talk about masculinity is dominance, being a domineering person and things like that, And then the last thing we're going to be talking about, so we're kind of curious about this right now too, is why the Lord is asking us to talk about biblical assurance. So that's kind of a mystery, so we're going to be exploring that. We've already prayed in, so anytime that we do our podcast, we'll either be already prayed up, and if I forget or we forget, which is maybe a high probability, we'll go ahead and just pray on the podcast, so that won't hurt nobody. So just ready to go ahead and jump right into it?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So then, the subject of masculinity. So, what do you, since you're the official expert now, because you have TED Talk under your belt, Dr. Reverend Bishop, what are some of your thoughts about, I guess, masculinity and biblical masculinity?
So, when I think of masculinity, the first thing that I think of is leadership. Mm-hmm. Right? I think of being out front, taking risks, not just risks, not singular, but plural, over and over, right? Going after it. And I think of confidence. So what's interesting is this. When I looked at my talk, Statistical Masculinity, I had in front of me a challenge, because TED put some pretty tight restrictions on the way that you can talk. You've got to kind of reel the people in with the story in the beginning, but then you need to drop some facts on them.
Right.
And so what was fascinating for me was to see that, totally unexpected, that men who go to church and men who have a clergy in their circle have a more normal, a more well-regulated androgen level. That is adrenaline in other terms. It's, adrenaline is part of the androgen family, I should say. And so basically what that means is that it is possible to be both masculine and disciplined, right? I think when you hear the term masculine or toxic masculinity, what you're really talking about is a man who is undisciplined, right? I think if you're doing it in the accurate sense.
Yeah.
But I think of medicinal masculinity that I like to talk about is a man who is fully man. You know, he's a guy. He loves football. He loves barbecue. He loves competition, but he's disciplined.
Yeah.
Right. And so what was interesting for me was to read the Bible and statistics and kind of see them line up. Mm-hmm. So I'm in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, and here's what this says. The saying is trustworthy. If a man aspires to the office of an overseer, he desires a noble task. Therefore, an overseer must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not a drunkard, non-violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. And it goes on to say some other things. Mm-hmm. What was fascinating to me was to look at these in the context of Paul, fully man. You know, he's an apostle. He's going out. He's preaching the word under impossible circumstances. He describes his experience in Ephesus in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 as, I think he says, fighting dragons, defeating dragons.
Yeah.
Right? So, right.
Pretty hardcore.
Pretty hardcore. And so I read this and I say, what is Paul really saying? What is his definition of manhood? And his definition of manhood is men who step up to the challenge of, one, leadership, being an overseer, right? But then two, the challenge of being sober mind, right? Mature, the challenge of being self-controlled, having strength, right? Having a lot of testosterone coursing through your veins, having dreams and visions, but being controlled and respectable and hospitable. I don't think that he did this to neuter men. I think he did this to challenge men.
Yeah. And something about the challenge that we as men, and that we go through is like, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like it's something about it that just is inherently in us that just turns us the right way,
Brother.
So like one thing I was thinking about before was I've been thinking about this the man equation, right?
Yes.
And when I looked at Genesis chapter 2, and this is what people kind of get messed up on a lot of times. They talk about be fruitful and multiply.
Yes.
And that was this commission. We keep on thinking that it's only talking about sex, right?
Yes. And
it's really not. It's talking about producing from your own.
That's right.
From your own hands, from your own sweat of your own brow, So it's about really doing that. And when we look at these challenges, it's about that challenge in the right and healthy way towards the good things rather than towards like debauchery and things like that. So when I look at the way that the Bible describes masculinity, a lot of times it's my own self-image, my bad self-image that says that, well, I can't do that, so now I'm against it. It's kind of like people who, say that they hate math, right? So, I hate math. That's because you're not good at it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So, or I hate video games. Why? Because I'm terrible at them. So it has nothing to do with the actual subject itself. It has more something to do with your evaluation of whether or not you can do that thing or not. And so when the Bible challenges us the way that it does, it's this contained discipline to expand your territory. And for believers especially, it is this call to produce this plot of land that's inside you, because Jesus says the kingdom of God is in you. So there's a plot of land inside of every believer, and God's saying, go out and expand your territory. That is the essence of life. It's about duplication. It's about expanding and making more what you have. That's what we call life. So when you look at the first thing that Jesus taught us, or not, that God showed us, which was botany, he gave us a framework about how everything else works in the universe. So like you have like things, for example, like a tree, or corn, or whatever harvest you want to talk about. You have something that's going to be growing and producing more of itself. When it stops doing that, it's called death.
Yes.
When the duplication stops, it's death.
Yes.
So it's like, go and produce more of what it is that's inside you, and do that for my kingdom. So when I look at masculinity, I'm kind of like, okay, that's kind of cool. And we're allowed to be that and to do that and to have fun with that. Just have some character about it, some integrity about it, in what God is interpreting as character or the truth of what God is saying in terms of what's integrity and what's discipline and things like that. So it's just been really, really kind of interesting to see the conversations around masculinity and how people approach it. What would you say though? What would you say though to someone who is, I don't know, maybe afraid of that? You know, like I guess we kind of move on to this. Kind of leads to the next subject that we have right here. You know, and that's about aggression.